All the cliches are true. Hindsight really is 20/20, and perspective really is everything. You can feel something in one moment, let it shape your experience, and reflect on it later with a new point of view that changes everything about what you thought it was. 6 months ago, I sat in my bedroom at home and excitedly booked myself a flight and accommodations for my first ever solo trip to Greece. I scoured the internet for the best places to stay, food to eat, and must-see destinations that would expand my mind and change the way I move through the world. In my daydreams, I was salty and freckled, tasting the fresh flavors of the Mediterranean every day and falling in love with strangers I would share profound connections with, only to never see them again. I saw myself moving slowly and watching the sun set over the sea with a feeling of serenity deep in my belly while reflecting on how generous life can be. I imagined a calm nervous system 100% of the time. When I arrived on my first island, my dreams came true. The room I rented in a small village overlooked a port lined with blue and white fishing boats, busy restaurants, and a short sandy beach from which I could access the turquoise waters in just a few steps. I felt like the luckiest girl in the world, yet I had a slight ache in my chest at the thought that this experience would be sweeter if I had someone to share it with. Despite the subtle longing for company in the back of my mind, I did what I set out to do, taking the advice of both my therapist and my mom to maintain the habits that ground me and release myself from the pressure of making this the most life-changing journey of my life so that I can simply relax and enjoy. Every morning, I had my coffee on the terrace and wrote at least 3 pages in my journal. I explored my area on foot, discovering white blue-capped churches and rocky beaches off the beaten path. I scratched the heads of affectionate island cats. I navigated public transit and wandered narrow cobblestone streets. I scraped clay off a massive rock and smeared it on my skin while I sat in the sun and gazed at the sea. I talked to strangers. I finished books. I felt lonely. In the early days of my trip, the weeks ahead began to look daunting. I was already growing tired of being alone, and I missed the electric energy of Paris, the place I'd been calling home for the past 2 months. The place where I could be alone for weeks, but be so wrapped in the buzz of the city that I somehow never felt lonely. There were many moments where the longing I felt for somewhere else overtook the gratitude I had for being on an island so charming, beautiful, and rugged. The magic felt tainted, and I felt guilty for not being overcome with joy every day over simply being there, achieving a dream. In the aftermath of one particularly teary day, where my isolation felt less like a gift and more like a huge mistake, I made a conscious effort to sit in the discomfort I felt and trust that the feelings would pass. And they did, as they always do. I pressed on and continued to give myself the experiences I wanted to have. As I moved to a different island, I was introduced to a fresh sense of awe at the history that was steeped into the new streets I got to explore. Colorful architecture, ancient monuments, and flowers and olive trees made for sights out of a fairy tale. Hundreds of shops filled with linen, local ceramics, and cheap souvenirs allowed for hours of endless browsing. Here, I opened myself up to meeting strangers with whom I would share meals, stories, and connections deeper than I knew were possible with someone you've only known for a few hours. Through their conversation, I was warmed by the openness that is allowed when you know you only have a short allotment of time to get to know someone. I was hungry to learn their perspectives, ways of life, and was delighted to find commonalities with people from all over the world. Still, in the quiet come-downs of exciting experiences and unforgettable connections, I longed for more, or maybe just for different. How sweet would it be to watch the sunset while wrapped in the arms of someone I love? To have some sense of familiarity and comfort in a place that feels isolating and at times stressful to navigate on my own. I thought I loved being alone, so why does it feel so empty? It was in these moments that I questioned whether the choice to travel alone was the right one for me. Would I do this again, knowing what I know now about the realities of how I feel when I do it? I didn't know. Hard times have a way of dominating my perspective. I can have 1 hour of joy followed by 1 hour of sadness, and it's the sadness that sticks. Consciously, I know that I've experienced so many wonderful things on this trip. Greece has a beauty unlike any other place I've been, and I'm filled with so many new stories to tell when I get home. But I miss home. I miss Paris, my friends, my comforts. 2 weeks in, most of my days were now spent forcing myself to keep busy to escape the ache of isolation. My body was here, but my heart was not. I began wishing the hours away in anticipation of the moment I'd be reunited with a familiar face and have someone to share my life with again. So, I made the decision to end my travels early, by just 3 days. Not out of sadness or despair, but because I feel like I've gotten what I needed out of my time here. I'm ready to go. Frankly, 2.5 weeks has been more than enough time for me. I feel proud of myself for recognizing that and making the decision to change my plans. As I approach my final 2 days, I'm reflecting on what this trip has been for me. I woke up this morning feeling guilty for wanting to end a vacation that so many other people would leap at the opportunity to have. I questioned whether I appreciated this time enough or if I spent too much time wallowing in my sorrows to enjoy it as much as I could have. I felt a twinge of regret that I spent so many days feeling defeated, isolated, and lonely when I could have been out having grand experiences to take my mind off the pain. But I don't want regret to be the feeling that defines this trip. And I also don't want to discredit the hard times I had. I did have grand experiences, and I also had hard experiences. They were equally as important. When I look back, objectively, I see this time for what it was. I challenged myself, explored some of the most incredible landscapes I've ever seen, and I made friends from around the world. I ate amazing food, and I swam in the Mediterranean Sea every day. I did a 16-kilometer hike. In Greece, for God's sake. This has been one of the most incredible trips of my life. The low times were hard, but I needed them. In times of stress, I found ways to regulate. In times of exhaustion, I allowed myself the space to rest. In times of loneliness, I found ways to pick myself up. Every difficult emotion I felt was an opportunity to show myself just how strong, trustworthy, and compassionate I am.
What the fuck?
I'm proud of how I was able to meet each feeling with grace and understanding. I did not feel calm and happy 100% of the time. No. But what I did feel was much better. I felt everything. When I do this again, which I will, I know what I need to do differently. But I have done my very best at making the most of my time in Greece, and I think I've done quite well.